your name.
We can change that.
It's okay. That doesn't matter.
Of course, I'm gonna log in and then there'll be 2 Patty fees.
So you're gonna let me share now? I'm gonna.
Yeah, do you want to do prayers first?
No, I'm just gonna start with the.
Just gonna start? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me go ahead and co-host you then.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, that should work for you now.
Okay.
Spotlight. Okay, there we go. We'll give it a few more minutes.
Okay. Yes, you can see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm going to call rename.
Linda and Brad, I've got you coming in twice. If you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, there we go. Now I'm only showing you once. You're good. Can you hear us okay?
She has her volume down.
Hey, Chris, will you change the name for Hemant?
I did. I changed it already to Hemant.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have him change we're showing your name for the Gampa.
Oh my goodness.
If you can, if you want to.
Mr. Parker is joining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hello, Ian.
Hello.
Glad you could make it tonight.
Yes. Have things to do.
Yeah. Okay, we've got Laura joining us. Welcome, Laura.
Yeah. Welcome.
Hello.
Okay, we've got a straggler or two coming in, Hemant.
Yeah. We'll wait another minute before we get going.
Brave the weather tonight? Yeah, if we could hear it.
2 people entered the waiting room. Why is that? 3 people entered the waiting room.
Yeah, I've got them coming in. Oh yeah, we getting some more online here.
Hi, CJ.
Hello.
little technical difficulty here today.
Oh, yeah.
I think I got it figured out.
Okay, okay.
All right, sorry.
We might have a little internet interruption if it's really windy here. But so far, so good.
It's
Hey,
very windy and stormy here too.
okay. So bear
Oops,
with us
give
if
me 1
anything
second.
happens. We'll try to get reconnected right away. Okay, we've got a handful here in the Gampa now, Hamit, if you want to
Okay,
go ahead
yes,
and get
sure,
started.
sure. Let's get going. No problem. Yeah, my phone was ringing.
More people online. Okay, welcome, Jennifer.
All right. So let's go, and wherever you are, it is optional, but I'll always start with 3 prostrations. At least if you're not able to do a mental prostration, Om Namo Manjushri, Namo Sushri, Namo Tamashri is so 3 times, okay? Just so, as an FYI, Venerable Thupten Chodron has a very nice explanation of how the meaning of this prostration, because people sometimes are hesitant. We are not bowing down to something. We are being humble and showing humility towards the teaching. And at one point, even she says, I want that. I want to be like you. So it's very nice. And there are hand positions that represent something for the whole world, the wisdom, the compassion, the whole world, and how we bow down. So it's a really nice meaning behind it. So when you get a chance sometimes and you're curious about what we say and why we say it, there is a whole description that she's given in one of her videos. And her name is Venerable Thupten Chodron, okay? Okay, so for today, this is the plan in general. I'd like to have at least you know what we are going to cover. We'll start with the typical our meditation, set in with a motivation. We'll do a brief recap of session 1. It's good to link things so you kind of refresh yourself. What is it that we are doing? We'll go into the 8 verses of thought transformation and look at verse number 2 and 3. And then we'll take a look again at the suggested reading. And I have a nice meditation on taking and giving by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and then we'll dedicate. That is the plan for the day. Okay. So let's get in that position of meditation. As you already know, I think I see everybody's familiar with it, but if not, keeping your back straight, legs either crossed, or if you're sitting in a chair, make sure your feet are on the floor. Arms are held loosely on your lap. Hands are resting 2 or 3 inches below your navel, and right hand over your left, and thumbs are touching in a form of a teardrop like this. Your head is slightly inclined forward. You can gaze on the floor or in front of you at the tip of your nose. Your jaw and mouth are relaxed, teeth slightly apart, and lips slightly touching. The tongue rests slightly on your upper palate, and the tip touches the back of the upper teeth. Your eyes, you can shut it in the beginning, but learn to leave them slightly open so you are aware. And then relax and scan your body, release any tension you may have. And the whole idea is to focus on your breath. Very natural, and no force is required. We breathe all day long, and it is one way to develop concentration. And also it is calm abiding because you're focusing on one object. So it helps us in both ways. So as you breathe in and out, focus on either the cool tingling on your nostrils as you breathe, or focus on your abdomen going in and out as you inhale and exhale. And just the idea is to keep your mind focused on your breath. And you'll find in about a few seconds, sometimes the mind starts to drift off. So observe that. Realize that that's what you're doing, and say to yourself, please gently bring it back to your breath. And let's do that for like 3 minutes, okay? Now with the mind somewhat calm, let's set our intention. Think about making this time worthwhile for ourselves and others, not just in this life, but in our future lives. It is important to listen with a good motivation. So turn your attention inwards. Think, just as I am stuck in this endless cycle of uncontrolled rebirth, so are all sentient beings. At present, I have met the Mahayana teachings and have the opportunity to practice while sentient beings, also called my mothers, are suffering. So the purpose of my life is not just for my own welfare or for only my future liberation. It is to bring each and every living being to the full enlightenment. Therefore, I go for refuge from my heart to Buddha, his teachings, and the community. And by the merit of listening to these teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to lead all beings to that enlightened state. So let's go through the brief recap. You can bring your attention back now. We'll go through this first time, a brief recap, and then from next class on, it will be short and quick. But I think it's very important in my mind to connect. And a whole week goes away, some things stay in and some things go out. So it's kind of good to link everything together. So if you remember, we started with a nice video, that FPMT video. And what really stood out for me in that video was Venerable Thupten Chodron talking about how we tend to blame others. Something goes wrong with you, we blame somebody else. And we not only blame somebody else, we want that pleasure right now. We don't even have patience to wait for it. And then she turned that around and she said, but think about it, if you're content, you don't have that many problems. So contentment was something she focused on. And then she also mentioned the fact that these 8 verses of thought transformation were at one point secret. That stuck with me, and I looked into it a little bit more. Why? And it really came down to the fact they are secret because it's your personal teachings. We all carry, some people are enlightened maybe here, some people are on their way to become, some people are like me who are still struggling. And so we all have our different delusions. So it becomes a personal teaching. It's not about talking to somebody, but say, I'm letting you go because I'm developing bodhicitta. So even there is a pride in there. So it becomes personal. Okay, keep that in your mind. And then we also want to make sure that this originated with Buddha. This is not somebody that made it up. It came from Buddha, and out of 2,500 years ago, maybe now 2,600 years ago, Siddhartha Gautama, when he became enlightened, he was known as Buddha or Shakyamuni Buddha, gave 84,000 teachings. And then later on, his teachings were divided into 3 baskets. We should be familiar with them. Some called discipline basket or Vinaya, good for monks, but it includes all the vows, the precepts, the vows, the pratimoksha vow, the bodhisattva vows, and so forth. So those are discipline, how one should live and behave and so forth. The second one was discourses, teachings. And this particular part comes from that. The discourse is called sutra. And there are 2 parts. Of course, we talk about wisdom side, we talk about compassion side. And so this is coming from the compassion side of the teachings. And the third, for your knowledge, was called Abhidharma, or more special philosophical teachings about mind and so forth. So this comes from the sutra or discourses side and more from the compassion side. However, it covers both the wisdom and compassion. Okay, but focus is more on the bodhicitta and training your mind with compassion. Okay, so let me see if I have a next slide on this. Yeah, so I'm going to go back and go to that. So then we talked about the word they use for this mind training is called lojong. I think it should be simple enough to understand why lojong. Lo means mind or attitude, and jong means transforming or cleansing. So this whole idea of what we are doing, transforming problems, is about changing our mind, right? So it's changing our mind. Why? So that we can be enlightened. What's coming in our way right now is the 8 worldly concerns, correct? We chase after those, and we're going to talk through that. So just so you know, Lama Atisha, if you are sitting in the Gampa, he's on the right-hand side. He's one of our lineage teachers, and he's the one who originated this. And then there was one Lama called Chekwa Yeshe Dorje. He developed this training of the mind in 7 steps. And then finally, it was Geshe Langri Tangpa in 11th century who authored the 8 verses of thought transformation. So that's your lineage is coming down. And what is it used for? These are a set of antidotes. Okay, so you can apply. The minute something arises in your mind, you can apply these. Right? So they're a set of antidotes. And why? It helps the practitioners to transform adverse conditions and thoughts. Again, we are moving towards enlightenment. So this is what's keeping us in samsara right now, are these delusions and karmic tendencies and habits, right? And so what happens is now that once you start practicing this, you can even see a problem come up and you can use that as an opportunity to practice. Right? You see a problem arising, you see anger coming up, or you see inflated pride arising, you can immediately say, I feel this way. I have been learning this. Maybe I can recognize it now. So we want to get to that point where you recognize a delusion coming and then apply the teachings. Okay, so that's another way to look at it. Then the key point again, I want to emphasize These 8 transformation thoughts are personal practice to transform our own negative states of mind. Okay? It is personal. So then we talked about the 8 worldly concerns. This is what we chase after, right? The left side, pleasure, is what we want. Pain is what we want to avoid. We want to gain things, not lose things. We want fame. We don't want to be criticized. Okay, praise versus blame. So these are some things we chase. Now, are these all bad? The teaching says no. It depends on your mind. If it becomes only self-cherishing, me, I, and that's all, I want this pleasure and I want it now, and I really don't care what others think, and I don't care for anybody else, now that's a negative state of mind. But if you open maybe a paint with a broad brush, saying, may everybody have happiness and pleasure. We say that in a very measurable, right? May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Then it's not so bad. Even when you look at people who are wealthy, for example, we might think, oh, how come they have it? How come I don't have it? Right? Again, you can wish well. You can say, may I have a wealth so I can benefit others. And so you can share, you can go to retreat, you can teach, you can train, you can do so many good things. You can help Kampas out, you can go somewhere else, go on a pilgrimage. So you can use the money for doing something positive, then the wealth is not so bad. But if it is hoarding it for me, my, and I, then it's saying that's delusional mind, that's a negative state of mind. Same thing goes with everything else. Nothing wrong in rejoicing. Some good things. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But the idea is self-cherishing is what we are trying to change. Self-cherishing and grasping. Okay? Again, the teaching also says that we need to be a little careful so we don't get too carried away and start to be martyrs and start to say, well, I'll give everything away. That's not the idea. You do the best you can and start small, and is slow and steady wins the race. Okay, what small things at a time. So here in the first particular verse, which we'll go through, and I'm hoping some of you have at least looked at it or memorized it, what it's trying to do is it's coming from the higher scope of bodhicitta, where we are talking about equanimity and developing bodhicitta. In other words, not only me, but what about the rest? And we very strongly talk about sentient beings being our mothers. And if you think about it, we are today, whatever we have, what we are is because somebody helped us. Parents have helped us, teachers have helped us, friends have helped us. So many things. When you eat, somebody's putting it together. Some farmers are working in the back, right? So we need that, and we forget that sometimes. So it reminds us of that. And remember, when you become Buddha yourself, you want to see that you want to benefit everyone. Okay? And then the idea of transforming our obstacles into spiritual practice. That's what we are doing. And so we want to counter the 8 worldly concerns. And that's why the 8 thought transformation verses are very important. So in other words, we talked about a paradigm shift. We normally don't think like that. We've been taught, and especially we live in a beautiful, rich country. It's capitalistic in nature, so we want more I have, more power I have, right? Generally speaking, of course, there are so many good things we do as a country. But the idea is we've become that way sometimes. I want it now. And this is teaching us to have bodhicitta and not be self-cherishing and grasping. And maybe I'll remind you a little bit about karma, and we'll go through this again, but I'll remind you of karma. If you remember karma from your DB classes, remember the throwing karma. When you become a certain way, your mind is filled with these seeds of only me and I and my pleasures, and I don't care. That's who you are. That's what you become. That's the cause of suffering. And when the throwing karma, when you leave and you move on to the next stage in next life, then you, with your tendencies and habits of the last thoughts, you will carry those seeds with you, and you're back in that cycle again, right? So the idea is, if we change negative states of mind into positive states of mind, and you are truly releasing some of that negativity and a happier person, when you move on to wherever we go, whatever that stage is, you will have a positive karma. And that will, again, turn into, the fruition would be that you will have a better state of that stage or next life. So that's what we are trying to do. Okay, so that's that. So this is the first verse. So, determined to obtain greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings, who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them dear at all times. So when you first look at it, conventionally speaking, we may think, wait a minute, I can't even deal with my neighbor right now. Right? So your mind goes conventional that way real quick, but it's telling you, when this thought arises, train yourself. And then what I did was I think I have Karmapa's statement, which I'll talk about it. And here before we go into Karmapa, what Karmapa said, I just want to say that we quickly start to think that it is just me and not others. So just remember that we need others, okay? Let me see. Yeah, what I would like to say is that, let me see if I have a slide here. Oops. It doesn't want to go there. There we go. So he starts by Karmapa. I found this very interesting because I was looking for some statement that I can put on slide. And he has all these 8 verses translated in his own words. And he starts by saying, this verse, first one, teaches us how to connect with all living beings who share this planet with us. It is critical to know how to relate with others in a compassionate and dharmic way. If we harm them, it will only lead to our own suffering. On the other hand, if we generate bodhicitta and respond to them in a harmonious way, that can bring us level of Buddhahood or omniscience. And then this slide. In brief, what this verse teaches is that attaining full awakening depends on other living beings. The attitude of wishing to benefit them opens the path and brings us to enlightenment. Therefore, those who seek complete realization should value others and see them as supreme. Okay, so that's the whole idea of verse number 1. So let's move forward to verse number 2. So when in the company of others, I'll move it here. I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from depths of my heart, hold others dear and supreme. When I first saw that, even I was I actually called Geshe-la and said, I need a little more help with this. I need to change my own mental state, because we look at conventional things. Do I mean lowest of all, meaning like a doormat? You want people to walk all over you? Okay. That's not how it is. This is not that it is saying. Remember, he said, you are changing your mind. There is a humility involved. When your pride is up, when it's me and I only, you need to use an antidote, and maybe you can learn something. And so all of a sudden, I put myself in a right perspective. And then I started to understand what he was trying to say. So we'll go through this in a minute. So verse 2 is countering pride with humility. Okay, this is, like I said, this is not how we normally think. We have a tendency to judge others, right? We have a tendency to disregard them if we don't have connection with them. We think people are not that important. And then especially if they're not helping you, we don't even think about them. If they're helping you, somehow we like them. The minute they don't help you, all of a sudden they're not as important. So we have this me and you going on all the time, right? So we carry on with this exaggerated, inflated state of pride. And this particular verse is countering that, this inflated state of pride or importance. Now, of course, there are valid reasons where we can value and appreciate ourselves. We're not saying that you should not appreciate yourself. Again, remember, it's not about saying you're a doormat and let people just walk all over you. This is not the case. For example, I don't know how many people have tantric initiations, but in Tantra, one thing we do is we generate ourselves as a deity. And you're supposed to have a divine pride. So you have a divine pride. That's a different pride. Now, Geshe-la has said many, many times, if you do a virtuous action, rejoice. Always rejoice, virtuous action. Matter of fact, because of virtuous actions, you've taken this birth. You met the Dharma. You are in the Kadampa. You are a good human being. So it's not always the negative things. It's also virtuous. So you should rejoice. Matter of fact, if you remember the 4 opponent powers, we say we should regret, rely on Dharma. We should have a remedy to counter our negative actions and resolve to become enlightened to benefit others. We should also add the 5th one. Let's rejoice for positive actions. So 4 hours, 5 hours, rejoice in positive things. So self-appreciation for good virtuous actions it's Dharma, it's good. However, this inflated state of mind is what they're trying to say is not good. Okay. Why? Because the afflictive state of mind is the cause of suffering in the future. You remember the 12 links I talked about last class. So I'm going to take a look at my note and just give you a quick understanding. But you should remind yourself that the reason we are always coming back in this samsara, this cyclic existence of birth and then sickness, old age, death, okay, is because of these 12 links, because it starts with the fact that we are ignorant of how things are. Why? It starts from the birth. We bring in those seeds from the past lives, some tendencies and habits, okay, not knowing how reality exists. You develop this mental formations of your ideations in your head based on that I, self, which is the cause of me and my. Then that starts with anger, aversion, ignorance. All this begins. Then it goes through all these things. It develops, then it becomes part of your consciousness. Then when you're born with some of these tendencies. Then you come in touch with things. Then you like things, and you don't like things, and they're neutral things. And then what you like, you start to crave. Then you grasp on them. And then that becomes you. That's what runs your life. And remember the 8 worldly concerns. That's what drives us. And we go for those temporary pleasures all the time. It's not saying that there are no happy moments in your life. We also bring in virtuous actions. We're not talking about karma here. I'm just saying general. Think why we struggle in this samsara. And when you grasp, when you crave, that's what your mind is now. And then when you're leaving this world, you carry those with you and you're back in this samsara again. And Buddha says, for noble truths, there is a way out of this. And I can show you the path, but who walks the path? You should walk the path. Okay, there's no magic to this. And these 8 verses are one way of changing our negative states of mind. Okay, so first, when it appears like, what do you mean by lowest of all? Our mind has a tendency to think conventionally with those tendencies that we carry. But when you really understand what Buddha is trying to say and really absorb it, it's a great training for that mind that always feels a little inflated. Okay, so that's what it's trying to say. And so those are the 12 links I'm talking about. So maybe you should remember those things. Also remember that all of these things that we are talking about, I've always mentioned that as you go through these classes, we have a tendency to learn linear. Oh, I'm learning about impermanence, so I just focus there. I'm learning about karma. But when you start to really practice, you'll see everything is interwoven. Even here, karma plays a role. The three aspects of the path plays a role. We talked about renunciation from self-cherishing. Renunciation doesn't mean running away and hiding somewhere and leaving your work and home and loved ones. No. Renunciation means too much me and I goes away, and you are really renunciating the life of samsara and you want to become enlightened. Renunciate that. You need to be aware of our ignorance so we can see the reality, emptiness, the way things are, and then developing bodhicitta, the third scope. So first, second, and third scope, the whole Lambrim is interwoven into this, right? Any questions so far?
Anyone just unmute? You guys have anything? Okay.
Okay. Well, anyways, if you have something, please feel to write it down, and then the last class, or maybe we can talk. But it's just if you have questions, write it down, okay? And we can address it. So what I wanted to say for the second one also is, so we may start with a valid sense of achievement and appreciation for what we have done, but by dwelling on it with self-grasping again and again. So for example, somebody says, you did a great job. Say thank you, dedicate, move on. Wonderful, feel good. Nothing wrong with that. That's not inflated pride. But now if you want to hear that 20 times, please say it again. Please say it again. You know, hey, here I am. Hello. When that starts to happen more and more and more, then there is something going on in your mind that is a little exaggerated. And that's what we want to avoid. So please remember to rejoice your positive actions. That increases your virtuous power. For example, you came to this class. You could have watched TV. You come on Sundays. You listen to Geshe-la speak. You could be doing something else. So you should rejoice. When you learn something, when you can integrate something, you feel good inside. And that you should be happy about. Because the tendency when we talk about a lot of these teachings, it gets into that what we shouldn't do, why we suffer, right? But keep in mind that everything we do comes with both virtuous and non-virtuous states of mind. And I'm going to ask somebody here, do we remember the non-virtuous states of body, speech, and mind, the 10 of those things? Anybody knows or remembers? What are the mind? The non-virtuous states of mind, actions of mind, karma, class? Anybody remember? A couple of them are simple, right? No killing, correct? I'll say them. No stealing. This is the body. Sexual misconduct. Then we go to speech, lying, divisive speech. I think harsh speech. Pointless gossip. Then I think it goes to mind, covetousness, greed, harmful intent, and then wrong view. And the antidotes to that are the virtuous actions. And remember, even in the third scope, I like to remind you that we are still talking about the verse, but it all is connected. They've even given us the method, how to live. Think about it for a second. In the third scope of Lambrim, we talk about equanimity, bodhicitta, 6 perfections, generosity, morality. And then Geshe-la teaches us even morality, you're refraining from negative actions. So it helps you understand the thought transformation. If your tendency is to do negative actions and you're refraining and you're changing that negative state of mind into positive, that's a thought transformation. You're increasing your merits by doing good things and you're benefiting others, bodhicitta. Then third one comes patience, right? I want my happiness now. No, take it easy, right? And then we do with joyful effort, develop our concentration and understand the way reality exists. 6 perfection also is is weaved into this. It's an amazing when you start to really understand how these things work. I think it's important to understand that how Lamrim really works and how fortunate we are to get these teachings. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about this particular thing before I go to this, I'll keep it up, is that, for example, even when you think about your work situation, some people have some jobs that may be stressful. And I would like to even mention that sometimes competition is there. Somebody is a boss. And then you find two types of bosses. Bosses that are team-oriented and work with you and they listen to you and they work with you. And some people somehow feel they're above you. They have that, I am the boss and you're going to listen to me and you're going to do what I tell you to do. Not only that, some team members who are pretty much even in status, some think they are more important because they can go, they have little buddies with the boss. When they're walking with some boss, they think like, I'm the boss also, you know? So we carry this exaggerated view of ourselves. And all the second verse is telling is, be humble, have humility. And when this type of thoughts arise, bring yourself down. And that's why it means you become lowest and somebody let them speak. Maybe we learn something. And so I'll end this second one. I want to make sure that we are on an okay time frame here. Plenty of good time here. I want to make sure that I didn't covered everything. I sometimes go through my lessons in my head and then I'm not changing the pages and I want to make sure I cover everything. So I do have a little point here that I made. The commentary on this verse gives many valid reasons to pursue it and us to consider ourselves as the lowest to counter the exaggerated thoughts we consistently have. Okay? So that's the reason they use that word. And so humility is the antidote to that puffed up feeling. And again, want to remind you, this is a personal training for your own mind. So that's why they used to call it secret. Okay, it's an essential advice. So Karmapa says, I'm going to read first and then we can end here. Second verse, here from the depth of our hearts, we are encouraged to consider that others are superior to us and that we are lower. He explains a good example of this is the ocean, which lies at the lowest altitude, known as the sea level. Due to that position, the oceans are able to receive the waters of all the world's rivers, and they eventually flow into the ocean. Likewise, we can lose our pride and develop true humility. We will be able to appreciate the qualities of others and receive knowledge from them, which will flow into us as rivers into ocean. If we can work with our pride and remain humble and open at all times, then every occasion presents an opportunity to experience and learn something new. Wonderfully said. So no matter where we might go, no matter whom we might meet, and no matter what circumstances might be, we can always learn something. Okay? Any questions on this particular verse number 2?
Hang on just a second.
Hemant, going back to that example of the office situation or work situation, you're in a group of people, maybe there's, it's a competitive environment. How do you practice this this second this one we're talking about here? Because like you were saying earlier, all this stuff is so counter to the usual world that we're functioning in. And so it's like I imagine you have to just kind of have this mindset, and then use wisdom to because if you're in that work situation and you take this literally, then you could easily, it could get kind of weird, right?
Yes,
Because the other people in the room don't, they would react, might react weirdly to that, especially, they're probably not familiar with this. So that's a big challenge, right?
yes, yes. Yeah, matter of fact, I'll just share. Um, I had similar question to Geshe-la in my talk, and he was very kind, very kind. And he says, look, this is the Bodhisattva path. This is what Buddha says. If you want to change, you need to do this, right? Now, some of us don't have the tools. When we work conventionally, you're surrounded by conventionalities. Okay, so either you can do something about it, keep quiet, or in your mind, you can see how you can do something to make it a positive outcome. That's what you're working towards. Instead of reacting a tit for tat, or when, for example, I can just give you my own example. When I was working, some people would just send a nasty email to you, right? You know what I did? I got up. I never responded right away. I would get up, walk away, think about it, turn that into a positive thing, do a little practice, and say, why don't we pick up the phone and talk rather than emailing back and forth? And 80 to 90% of the time, when I sat down and talked and we addressed the issue, the problem was resolved. Okay, so we have to come up with tools. I mean, we have a job, we have spouses, we live in a world with conventionalities. The teaching is for your own mind to practice. It's not saying just keep your mouth shut all the time. But if you can do something about it, if you can change your mind when you see that the anger is rising, this is a competitive situation and something is arising, you have to train your mind to see it from a different angle, right? From a bodhi, you can understand that that person is trying to be happy for themselves, but it may not be the right solution. So you come up with a solution, but remember, being angry and assertive, two different things. Anger causes hatred, or, oh, this stupid guy, I want to hurt this guy. Now we have two crazy people. You are angry and he is angry, or she is angry. So you don't want to do that. You come from a more compassionate side without using too much of this, and you can resolve the issue in the best way that is beneficial. It's a win-win situation. You can do that. Not all circumstances may lead to that, but Geshe-la told me either you have a solution, or you practice in your mind, or you walk away from a situation. And again, each person develops their tools to work with it and around this kind of a mindset. So I don't know what else to tell you. Jeevan, I'm assuming that's who you're the one with the question. So maybe we can talk more about it. There are some examples I have.
Okay, yes, thank you, Hemant.
Okay, so can we move on to verse number 3? So here, very nice verse. Vigilant the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. So now you're beginning to see the picture of what these verses are doing. When you first read them, they may be anti our habits. It doesn't sound right, but more and more you start to really see what Buddha's teachings are all about. There's way out of it. And what it's trying to tell you is how to avert those delusions, okay? How to protect your mind and, and strengthen your practice. So it's an opportunity to, again, change and transform ourselves. So here, okay, we are talking about a delusion is an afflictive mind. And just by being present, that afflictive mind is disturbing your mind. Whether it's pride, jealousy, anger, attachment, when it's present, that mind is disturbed. Okay, so understand, again, we get into karma. Remember, by nature, these delusions disturb the mind. That's their nature. They cause propensities for suffering in the future. The seeds, again, the 12 links, those tendencies, more we do it, more habitual we get. We may even get a resolution quick by anger, a burst of anger. Somebody does what you want them for what I want them to do. Okay, but you are perpetuating that this nature actually works. Once you do that, you'll do it again. Then you'll do it again. And all of a sudden, you become an angry person. And then at its height, you just look around the world, open the news, and you can see what anger does. Look at the destruction. Look at the murders. Somebody was not in the right state of mind. And Buddha is saying, to avoid that from happening, stop it as it arises. And there's ways for it. Be vigilant. Keep your mind. We know karma. We know the non-virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind. We know what's going to cause us, what is causing that, now that we understand how I is attached and it wants everything for itself. Slowly and steadily, as you learn these things, and you become vigilant and you practice them, you will see that you're able to recognize those tendencies. We all have them. Sometimes you'll be doing something fantastic and there comes a thought. And you're like, where did this come from? Because it's there, right? So think about it. Karma is the intention that gives rise to various effects, the mental cause that creates myriad of effects. So let's talk about that. Whether we are thinking, speaking, or engaging in physical activity of some kind, the intention that accompanies these actions determines whether that action becomes virtuous or non-virtuous. So now they're talking about delusions, right? We talked about those 10, thou shalt not kill, like we say, stealing, lying, harsh speech. Think about that. Gossip, greed, covetousness, harmful intent, wrong view. Even when you have this competitive situation, but if your intention is positive, if you mean well, and the delusions are not rising, or you're able to avert them, you can still resolve that situation. You can work towards that. Okay? So that's one thing. So if a negative mind is present while we are thinking, speaking, or acting, then it will generate a negative result in the future. Simple as that. That's karma. Okay? And remember, the potential result that is accumulated or that forms a complete karma. So remember the 4 points: the intention, you have to have an object, you need to complete the action, that forms a full karma. If the intention was positive and you did the action, it's not fully ripened karma. Intention was positive. Okay, so not to dwell on karma, the module on karma, but I just wanted you to know. So again, and if you do these things that are positive or negative, then there are results. You can have a rebirth result. In a rebirth, you will have those tendencies in samsara. There may be environmental result. Look at environmental results in some areas right now, pollution. Okay, resultant habits. We create those tendencies. Somebody steals from you because you stole from somebody else all the time. Okay, and receiving that kind of reciprocal behavior. You put down people all the time, and maybe you wonder why people don't listen to you this life. So you can see how that can work. In the end, it's telling you to develop a state of mind, you have a nice contentment, positive state of mind, let go of some of this delusion. And these verses are helping us to change. That's all it is doing. Okay, now also remember in karma is compounded. What does that mean? It increases. Every life, those seeds keep on increasing. And the only physical example I can give, I was thinking about this. If you look at the seed of a fruit, and if you think about it, if you put it in a soil, then another tree comes out. If the causes and conditions are there, the karma is there, then the effect is another tree is blossoming that will bear some fruits. Now there are many fruits, many seeds. It expands from that one seed to many seeds. It can be a positive compounded karma or expanded karma. It can also be negative karma. You do something harmful, that person does something harmful, that person does something harmful, that affects the family, that may impact the environment or community, and that can go wild. So you can see positive things can change into positive and negative things can also expand into negative. So vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. One more statement I have, I've wrote it down, so I'm going to mention it. It's fantastic if you have all good karma. You have a positive attitude in your mind, so you feel good at all times, and that's a virtuous mind. However, be aware that it is very dangerous if the motivation we have is conjoined with non-virtuous afflictive states of mind. It is very important to be aware of that because it can be destructive or deceive you. It's like a bad friend. You listen to that friend and you always wind up in trouble. He's still a friend. But you listen to some of those things, they're like a little dumb friend that is going to advise you, you take it, and you always find yourself in trouble. So remember, attachment, pride, and anger, when these things arise, these are deluded states of mind. Okay, so just remember that. Okay, and you confront it. Okay, let's see, anything else? So again, the last word I have is be on guard at all times. On all times. We get too busy with life and we lose this sometimes. Okay? Morality of restraint, morality of accumulating merits, doing good things for positive states of mind and benefiting others. Good to remember. And also remember, you are in this life doing positive things. It's because of your past ethical behavior. Okay? And don't take things too personal. If somebody says something, they're trying to be happy, keep in mind, it's not about you all the time. So we take that, we become very sensitive sometimes in the tone of the voice, or somebody says something, oh, they must be talking about me. Take it easy. Okay. So any questions? I'm going to go to the next verse from Karmapa for verse 3.
Heyman, can I ask a question about that verse?
Sure.
Is there a resource that you can recommend that has like a quick reference to the antidotes
Yes.
for averting, the delusions when they arise? Because so I often I'll be able to, like, when anger is arising, I'll be able to recognize it, and then if I'm lucky, then I might be able to then think, okay, there's anger is arising. The antidote to anger is patience. And then I'm like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So how do I
have some
put patience
resources,
into
Jimmy.
practice? Yeah.
Sure, I have some resources. Sorry. I have some resources. And just for a quick, immediate answer, I can tell you, for example, I have a note here. If you're talking about killing, maybe you want to protect some life. If you're thinking about stealing, generosity plays a good role. You can always remedy by giving things or doing things that are anti-stealing. If you have a tendency to steal, maybe this time you give a little bit, and maybe that will remedy some of this. You practice at least giving. Maintain one's discipline if it's sexual misconduct. If it talks about speech, speak honestly instead of lying. Okay, if it says divisive speech, reconcile, talk with people, make sure you connect with people like that way. If it's harsh speech, maybe you learn to speak pleasantly. You can do some few things you can practice, slow down a little bit. If it's a lot of gossiping, maybe speak meaningfully. Okay, maybe if it's a mind, okay, you talk about greed or covetousness, maybe generosity is helpful. If it is harmful intent, maybe you're talking about loving kindness. Develop that part of it. See how it feels to be able to love and be kind to others. Pay forward sometimes. Wrong view. And then you correct the view of reality by learning, by reading about it, by really understanding how things are, and you develop this kind of these antidotes, and you will see that it really will make a big difference. And there's a bunch of books on it. I will be more than happy to share with you. Okay.
Okay, yes, we're good.
Okay, so I'm going to read something, then we'll go into this particular side. This is again the third verse in Karmapa's statement. The previous verse is counseled that we should hold others to be superior and important. However, this is hard to put into practice. And so, just like Jivan is saying, it's very hard. It's easy to say, hard to do. Hard to put into practice. And sometimes we cannot accept that all living beings are higher than we are. At this point, we need to look at this attitude and realize that it comes from our afflictions. It's a projection of our mind. We should then think about our afflictions and about all the times that they have taken over and caused us so many problems, our afflictions. Apparently something is still going on in our mind, so they are still alive. If we clearly consider how troublesome they are, this will clear away the attitude of thinking we are superior to others. Relying on being vigilant, mindful, and aware, we can catch afflictions just as they start to appear. If we look at the experience of people who have trained their minds and those who have not, the difference is clear. You can see, even look at Geshe-la, for example. He's a very kind person. Have you ever gone to his place? He just wants to give things away. Take here. Very kind person. Okay. Look at His Holiness. Okay. For example, when anger begins to appear in our mind, we have a chance to stop it. But once it becomes full-blown, this is very difficult as the affliction has taken control. We all know that. It's very hard sometimes, right? But you can stop it early, change your mind, use an antidote, listen to some music, go for a walk, something, right? But once it takes over and you justify it, you don't care. It just happens. It takes over. So, however, those with experience of mind training can see the process of anger arising. So, Jivan, there is a process. We need to learn those 7 steps of mind training, and we can learn to do some meditation. And as soon as it arises, it will let you know, hey, there it is. It's coming. I don't like this. And that I will come up. And you say, what do I do now? Can I walk? Can I go away? Can I do something about it? Then you will start to use some tools that can squash that anger down. And so when you can see this process of anger arising, so they will have a short time to reflect before anger manifests. Most important here is to rely on our experience and ability to be vigilant, mindful, and being aware. So you will increase these things. And with that, this slide, as soon as we see an affliction beginning to arise, we stop it immediately and forcefully. Without the experience of practice, this is very difficult to do. So if you're choosing the path of Mahayana, You want to become a bodhisattva. You are on the path of bodhisattvas. These afflictions are coming up once in a while, or they come and they consume you. Then we need to stop and see how we can bring them down or let them. And these 8 thoughtful transformation are the antidotes in themselves. And then we need to look at antidotes like Jivan was asking for some of those things. And there are plenty of them. Okay. So with that in mind, it's too long. I'm going to keep just remind you of the recommended readings just for your own purposes. These are some of the things that are suggested if you're planning to finish this program and take it from FPMT and complete the taking the tests and so forth. Make sure that you are aware of some of these reading requirements. And at least Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand has the 7 steps of mind training explanation, very nicely written. I have 2 books that I am trying to also read and looking at different angles. One is Kindness, Clarity, and Insight from His Holiness, and then Transforming Problems into Happiness by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So I'm also kind of keeping an eye on some of these topics in my mind for the purposes of this class. Also, there are some readings that they have suggested that comes with the class. Oops, hello. There you go. So for homework, I would like you to at least, start reading Mahayana Thought Transformation by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. You want to memorize these verses while we are still on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. It's easy. And as you recite these verses, take few minutes to contemplate what happens to our mind. What is the trigger when somebody says something to you? There's a trigger. What is that trigger? Contemplate how you can be vigilant. Okay, and slowly and steadily, you'll see how this thought transformation really begins to help us, and we can integrate that positive states of mind. Okay, so with that, it is 8:02. This is a little, in my view, slightly lengthy meditation, but it's a very nice meditation. And so we'll do that meditation now, and then we'll dedicate and we'll close the class. Okay. So again, get yourself in a meditation position. Calm your mind down. Take a few breaths in and out. And this meditation is on taking and giving. And it is by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Okay, again, relax your mind, focus on the breath. And let's set the motivation for this meditation. Create an altruistic motivation for this meditation session. Think that you are meditating not for just your own well-being or peace of the mind or for good reputation, but you're taking the time now to meditate and accumulate vast stores of merit to be able to reach the state of enlightenment where you can most skillfully benefit all beings. So now the meditation. Remember the purpose of taking and giving meditation. By generating great compassion, we take suffering and the causes of suffering of numberless sentient beings within ourselves and use them to destroy our own self-cherishing thoughts, the source of all our problems. So by generating great loving kindness, we give other living beings everything that we have. Give them our body, friends, possessions, our merits, happiness. So check your mind, check your posture. Make sure your spine is straight, shoulders are back and relaxed. Again, take few deep breaths in and out. Again, continuing with the motivation, thinking at this very moment, all our kind mother sentient beings are experiencing great suffering. But they are also running constantly to create the cause for more. There is not even a second in which they can experience a moment of happiness. If a mother's suffering is not alleviated by her own child, who else will do it? At the moment, I am capable of relieving the suffering. At the moment, I am incapable of relieving the suffering of even one sentient being. Yes, if I receive the enlightened holy body, just one ray of that light could ripen the minds of countless sentient beings, leading them to a state of great peace. Therefore, to release all mother sentient beings from suffering and lead them to sublime happiness of enlightenment, I must attain the exalted state of Buddha. The attainment of Buddhahood is not without causes and conditions. And the principal cause are the two bodhicittas, the conventional bodhicitta, mind that wishes to free beings from suffering and bring them to the state of enlightenment, an ultimate mind that has realized emptiness. Therefore, I am going to practice the profound method of taking and giving meditation. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain the state of Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. First, generate compassion by thinking how living beings constantly experience suffering, even though they have no wish to do so because they are ignorant of its causes, or because they know the cause of suffering, they are too lazy to abandon them. Think how wonderful it would be if all living beings could be free from all suffering and the causes of suffering, karma and delusion. I myself will free them from all their suffering and its causes. As you breathe in, imagine you take all sufferings and the causes of sufferings of all other living beings through your nostrils in the form of black smoke. As you slowly breathe in the black smoke, taking the sufferings and its causes like plucking the thorn out of their flesh, you immediately free all numberless living beings from all their suffering. Next, take all the subtle obscurations from the arhats and the higher bodhisattvas. There is nothing to take from gurus and buddhas. All you can do is make offerings to them. The black smoke then comes through your nostrils and absorbs into the self-cherishing thought in your heart, completely destroying it. Your self-cherishing, the creator of all your problems, becomes non-existent, like aiming a missile right at the target. Aim right at self-cherishing thought, the target in this meditation. Take from others all undesirable environments that they experience. You can take in all the problems they could be facing Again, as you breathe in that through your nostril, you're destroying your self-cherishing thought, and it completely destroys it. At the same time, as your self-cherishing becomes completely non-existent, the false I that ignorance holds so truly existent also becomes completely empty, as it is empty in reality. Meditate for a few minutes or few seconds at least on this emptiness, the ultimate nature of I. Next, generate loving kindness by thinking that even though living beings want to be happy, they lack happiness because they're ignorant of its causes or lazy in generating them. Okay. And even if they achieve some temporary happiness, they still lack the ultimate happiness of full enlightenment. Think how wonderful it would be if all living beings had happiness and the causes of happiness. Visualize your body as a wish-granting jewel. And you want to give everything to the human beings, for example, give all your good karma, your possessions. You know, those who want friend, may they find friend. Those who want a guru, may they find a perfect guru. Those who want a job, may they find a good job. Those who want doctor, find a qualified doctor. Those who want medicine, find good medicine. Those with incurable diseases, you become the medicine that cures them. Shower them with the wealth you may have. This is the wish-granting jewel. You can also think that the environment becomes a pure land of Amitabha, Buddha of compassion, for example. You grant all human beings everything they want, including the pure land. In the similar way, the worldly gods, demigods, give them the armor that they want. Think of the animals, they need protection. So you can manifest yourself in the aspect of a Buddha, which is called Vajrapani, an aspect of Buddha that represents Buddha's power, strength, and to benefit animals. Same thing in all 6 realms, the hungry ghost realms, the spirit realms, wherever they are, you are simply trying to benefit them and lift them out of their miseries. In this way, after everyone has become enlightened in this way, rejoice by thinking how wonderful it is that I have enlightened every single living being. Wow, wow, wow. And now let's close with dedication. To dedicate, remember verse number 2 and think, due to these merits, may I come to develop true humility, holding myself as lowest of all. In the verse 3, may I learn to recognize and avert affliction as soon as they arise. Then more, the general goal. May I destroy the demon self-cherishing thought, quickly realize bodhicitta, and go on to attain state of Buddha and lead all sentient beings to their enlightened state. You can bring your attention back. So that was the meditation on giving and taking. You can go even in all 6 realms and go through each one of them. But the idea is you are destroying your self-cherishing thought, and you can see the entire samsara as one and how you can benefit from that. And by removing this and being vigilant and removing the self-cherishing thought. Okay? So that was verse 2 and 3. Next class, we'll attempt to get down to the 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then the last class will try and cover 2 so that we have time for any questions and answers and summarize. Okay, any questions?
Okay. Sounds good, Hemant.
Okay,
anyone
I
has
was
any-
hoping to get done at 8:15. It's 8:15.
On the nose, yes, on the nose. Okay, If there aren't any questions, then we'll close for tonight and hopefully see everyone back next week.
Thank you so much for your patience with a lot of my mouth running. Thank you.
Words of wisdom. Thank you, Hamid.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night now.